So what I'd like you to do today is I'd like you to think about yourself as a leader and think about your role in leadership, because what I submit to you is that you are a leader and we need you to lead us. What does it mean to be a leader, and what are those attributes that you need to do that? Now, I know that you're a leader because the actions you're taking are inspiring the actions of other people, right? Whatever all of you guys are putting out there is what all of us are getting back. And some of you are leading your families, you're leading those people around you. Some of you are leading businesses. Maybe some of you have dreams of leading countries, perhaps. So what does that really mean? Well, recently the essayist William Dereshevich, he did a speech at West Point, a place that's all about leadership. And he said that in America, we have a crisis of leadership in America because our overwhelming power and wealth earned under earlier generations of leaders made us complacent, and for too long we have been training leaders who only know how to keep the routine going. Keep the routine going. Now, I don't know about you, but that's not what I think of when I think of great leaders. People who jump through hoops, keep the routine going, keep people happy. So, and Dereshevich says that we're training our leaders to be that way. So if you look in the fields of science, performing arts, medicine, we don't want to raise up a series of leadership generations that are just keeping things carrying on. So how are we going to change that? He says that we're training them, and that means we have to lead them to a new way of thinking. One thing we need to know is the difference between intelligence and wisdom, because really wisdom is what's required for leadership. Now, I think all of us know that some very non-smart people can get to be the biggest leaders in the world. And there's also some very smart people who can become leaders and not be able to lead effectively. So what does it take? Well, I talked to a UW professor recently, and he told me something. He said, my students in the master's program of medicine are distracted. They're smart. They can always get to the right answer, but they're distracted, and they can't tell you how they got to that answer. They can't communicate and lead you around to their way of thinking. Another professor told me that his master students in the business school were clever, but not necessarily creative. He pointed out to me that the internet's the great equalizer in terms of this. You can be clever, creative, or debaucherous and get the same amount of attention focused on you. But I would put forth that creativity is something we need for leadership. And what about multitasking? So everyone says that we're multitasking, right? That's what we're all doing these days. And even recent studies have shown us that we're not actually multitasking, that we're actually just task switching. We're breaking down our attention span into small segments so we can handle all the incoming information. And even in our friendships and our relationships are multitasking. We're managing hundreds of friends on these social networks. I mean, I know what my high school acquaintances are doing on a Friday night, and I've still got issues with some of those people. So in all of this, we're losing ourselves. That's what I would submit, is that we've got to find ourselves again. And Dereshevich says later in the speech to these cadets, he says, what you need is solitude. He says it's what you're going to get the least of here at West Point, but it's what you need to be a leader. Abe Lincoln, a person who was known as a man of solitude, someone who was okay being alone with his thoughts and had time for original thoughts. Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, talks about the 7th habit, self-renewal, physical, mental, emotional, social, spiritual. He calls it sharpening the saw, learning to take care of yourself so that you can inspire and lead others. There are other examples of this out there. Phil Jackson, one of the greatest coaches in the NBA, has to lead a group of people who have the biggest egos in the world. And how does he do it? With his Zen beliefs. Can you imagine walking into that locker room and saying, now we're all going to sit down and meditate before the game? But that's what he does. That's original thought. That's not just carrying on the traditions of other coaches, but that's actually bringing part of yourself and sharing it with the people that you're leading. So this original thought, where does it come from? Well, we've got to get away from some of the information. We got to get away from all the stimulation that we have in the world today and get time to process things on our own. So you're a leader. We've established that. How are you going to do that? What are you going to do to balance the input with the need to process and think things out and communicate more effectively. That's really what we're looking for, is where we can get that spark of creativity. Jason Fried, 39 Signals, got a great tech blog. You should all read it. He says, driven to distraction. Just take a deep breath and repeat after me. It just doesn't matter. He says laziness has got the best ROI in the business, right? He said when he stopped overproducing and he started producing at about the right level, he actually became a better leader. James Joyce, he wrote Ulysses, one of the greatest novels of our time. He wrote it at a rate of about 150 words per day. T.S. Eliot, over 25 years, or he wrote like 150 pages of, over 25 years, he wrote like 150 pages of poetry. That's it. These are people who found that quality was more important than quantity. So getting alone, finding solitude, what's going to be there if we find it? If we take that risk of doing it, what will we find? That might be the scariest thing of all. The Indigo Girls have some famous song lyrics. They say, darkness has a hunger that's insatiable, and lightness has a call that's hard to hear. And I would submit to you that when you get that solitude, that sense of peace, you hear that call of lightness. And the lightness is the call of creativity, an original thought. And that creativity, that spark, is what we need to really lead. So my challenge to you is to be a leader. Take time to unplug. Find that call of lightness, because we need you to lead us. Thanks.